an ethics bill. It really does make sure that we don't have backroom deals to put people on the ballot and run as a result of some small group of people in a smoke-filled room making the choice. So I think, to me, more transparency is better. Yeah. Thank you.
I feel robbed. I feel violated. I feel, this was something that I really was proud of. I look forward to it. I did it for me, for my family, but most of all for the American people.
It was not a good feeling to have the rug pulled from under us, especially when we are so close. We had a deadline. We still had a few weeks to, finish the work that we started. And this bill completely stopped us in our tracks.
Because this is it's just silly. I mean, it's just silly what they would do something like this, especially at the 11th hour. So, yeah.
So there's just some of the potential candidates impacted by the law that the governor signed Friday to change election law. Welcome back. I'm Greg Bishop with Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out. And we talked about this on Thursday morning after the House amended a bill dealing with DCFS, anticipating that the Senate would take it up. The Senate took it up on Thursday, and then the governor got it and signed it on Friday. So what this law ultimately does is it essentially fills the ballot with only 3 non-binding resolutions for voters to sound off on, which also blocks any other potential ballot resolutions to get on the November ballot. You also have the change of slating of candidates, where we discussed if a candidate didn't run for the state house in the primary, then that slot cannot be filled by the local party through what is called slating. Regardless of your thoughts on slating, and there's plenty of criticism to be had about that process, but that's the rules that were laid out in election code heading into this election cycle for 2024. So here we are, just a few months before the November election, and Democrats at the State House, as it's been characterized elsewhere with their supermajority, muscled in election law changes for the election coming up in November. So I was able to connect with a couple of individuals who are being slated. They're putting the paperwork together to be slated and ultimately get on the ballot, and called them up Friday after the governor decided to sign this measure into law effective immediately. And I connected with Leslie Collazo up in the Chicago area. She's looking to run as a candidate for the Republican Party to take on a uncontested Democrat, State Representative Sean Ford. He did not have a Democratic primary opponent, and there was no Republican opponent on the primary ballot. So here's Leslie talking about how she felt after Governor Pritzker signed the law, essentially saying that people can't be slated if they weren't on the primary ballot.
I was shocked initially, and then I felt like, well, this is no surprise for our government to pull a stunt like this. I was very upset and really disappointed. We have really been actively petitioning, canvassing, talking to folks, enlisting volunteers, and to have to go back to everyone and say, hey guys, sorry, but this bill popped up to me out of nowhere. I'm really not sure how something like this can happen without people knowing about it, especially if it affects you. But I think that's one of the things that I find really frustrating is the lack of transparency in the way things are done in the government. So we had a lot of disappointed folks, but I don't think we're going to give up so easily. It was not a good feeling to have the rug pulled from under us, especially when we are so close. We had a deadline. We still had a few weeks to, finish the work that we started. And this bill completely stopped us in our tracks. And I'm offended by that completely.
So others I talked with, James Kirshner, he is looking to get on the ballot as a Republican for the 13th Senate District. State Senator Robert Peters from Chicago ran unopposed in the Democratic primary for that Senate district. There were no Republicans on the March primary ballot. Kirshner responding to Governor Pritzker signing this measure after just 2 days of it passing through the House and the Senate.
It's pure shock. It really is. I can't think of a better word. I don't even know what to say, because I understand that, the opposing parties don't always get along. I get that. That's been since I was a child, right? But no one's ever tried to absolutely, clearly, and blatantly usurp the process to have some kind of, race for a seat or a rep position or what have you.
So, again, shock, feeling cheated, having the rug pulled out from underneath of them. Another candidate I talked with, Giovanni Rivera, he said that he was prepared to be slated in the district up in Chicago where there was no Republican that ran for the primary. And Giovanni, again, saying that he's shocked at what happened.
I feel robbed. I feel violated. I feel, this was something that I really was proud of. I look forward to it. I did it for me, for my family, but most of all for the American people, for my fellow Chicagoans, being a native of Chicago, born and raised here back in 1980, and wanting to fix the country. But I haven't even given a chance to get on the ballot because this government is basically took that away from me, took that right. It's unethical, it's unprofessional, it's not American. And it hurts, it really hurts. I feel like a fool. I've been telling my friends and family that I'm, running. I'm very proud of that, and my children, most of all my children, they looked up to me. They had more respect for me than anything. And I explained to them what the process is, what am I doing, why am I doing it, and very proud of me. But now I had to tell them, hey, I had this opportunity stolen from me because of the government.
So Giovanni talking again about how he was lined up, getting ready to do this. There was nobody on the March primary ballot for the Republican Party in that district. State Representative Eva Dina Delgado in that Chicago district had no Democratic primary opponent. And I was looking at, some of the statistics just to show you people, somebody asked, well, was this surely going to benefit Democrats? We had talked about this before heading into the March primary. More than half of the available seats up for grabs in the Illinois General Assembly, the party was already determined. From my review in the March primary, there were 16 Democrat Senate seats guaranteed with no Republican slated. 5 were only Republicans seats with no Democrats running. So again, 16 in the House in the Senate versus 5 in the Senate. So 16 Democrat seats had no Republican opponent possible for the November election unless somebody's slated after the primary. 5 districts had only Republicans with a seat with no Democrat running. For the Illinois House, there were 44 seats that only had a Democrat running, and only 22 seats only had a Republican running. Democrats already have the supermajority in both chambers, and if Republicans aren't allowed to slate candidates post-primary, then that majority is guaranteed. So interesting to see all of this. Is there going to be a potential lawsuit here? And that's a question I posed to Leslie Collazo, who responded saying that's something that's being considered.
There are ideas circulating currently at the moment. I plan on fully being on board with any ideas that align with litigation. I feel like that is the reason why those processes are there. And if we have to fight it that way, then we will. I think this is really unfair, especially for the community that I represent, which is one of the poorest in the city of Chicago and has the most struggles, who have been negatively affected by all of the decisions that are made by lawmakers in this district.
So clearly a lot more to be said about this, because even Giovanni Rivera saying that he would jump on a lawsuit if one was brought forward.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yes. I think the government, there's no reason first of all, I was already slated. If he put a law out this morning saying, okay, from here on out, we can't do this, okay, fine. But I was already slated. All the people were slated. We worked hard for this opportunity. I don't think it's right that the government can pick and choose laws that deconstitutes other people's rights. Everyone has a right for their voice to be heard. Everyone has a right to run for office or to be a teacher. Why are you taking these rights away from the people because it doesn't benefit you or your party?
So, again, potential lawsuit, I asked James Kirchner that question as well.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't directly go and file a lawsuit. But if there's something I can do, or put my name in a petition or something, I'll do it. Yeah, any legal means I can take, I'd happily do, because this is it's just silly. It's just silly what they would do something like this, especially at the 11th hour. So yeah.
Again, the question to these three potential candidates, and these are just three that I had talked to early Friday after the governor signed the law. You also have a district where State Representative Katie Stewart ran in the primary, got through the primary, but there was no Republican in that district, and that's a Southern Illinois district around the Edwardsville area. And there was a Republican who already turned in their signatures to get slated. So you've got across the states this potential blocking of these candidates. And if you check out the story at thecentersquare.com, again, check out thecentersquare.com regularly every day. Make it part of your news consumption ritual. Candidates feel cheated, violated, robbed after Pritzker enacts law ending slating. But despite the law, the Elections Board will accept those petitions. And I talked with the State Board of Elections briefly on Friday after talking to these potential candidates, and they said that they're already accepting some slating filings. And despite the new law, they're going to continue to accept them under the original deadline of June 3rd. Now, after that, there's an objection process. June 10th is a deadline to object. There could also be litigation from those objecting to the law, or from candidates on the ballot looking to use the law to block opponents seeking to be slated. So it's not the last we've heard of this. We'll see what happens. Even Governor J.B. Pritzker could be asked about it later on today, as he has a couple of different events. So we'll see what ultimately comes about all of this. But keep it with Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and don't forget to check out thecentersquare.com for the latest of what's going on at the Illinois State House. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in.